What's up, Taiwan? I'm Eric Gao, and thanks for joining us here for the news. Washington has dropped another tariff bombshell. President Donald Trump says all imported semiconductors will soon face a 100% tax unless the maker is building chips on U.S. soil. Taiwan's market has rallied on hopes that its biggest chip firms would likely dodge the hit, but economists warn that it could still carry some risks for the country. Chris Gorham reports.
Hello, everyone.
A surprise announcement from the White House. President Donald Trump says he plans to impose tariffs of up to 100% on semiconductors, with one key exception.
So 100% tariff on all chips and semiconductors coming into the United States. But if you've made a commitment to build, or if you're in the process of building, as many are, there is no tariff.
No details have been published yet. While a 100% levy on Taiwan's most valuable industry would be devastating, investors seem to think that the U.S. investment carve-out puts most Taiwanese firms in the clear. Taiwan's main stock index, the TAIEX, closed up 2.37%. Tech heavyweights like chip giant TSMC gained nearly 5%, reaching a record high. Others like Foxconn and MediaTek also saw gains. One firm, Global Wafers, saw their shares rise so high that it triggered an automatic trade stoppage.
About your company, please.
That's as Apple CEO Tim Cook announced from the White House the company's additional $100 billion investment in U.S. manufacturing, with partners like Global Wafers and TSMC.
And I'm very proud to say that today we're committing an additional $100 billion to the United States, bringing our total U.S. investment to $600 billion over the next 4 years.
For Taiwan, the announcement lands the same day a 20% U.S. tariff on most other goods kicks in. Officials say their negotiations for a trade deal with Washington to bring that number down continue.
但是对我们来说，我们的谈判团队一定会持续的跟美国争取，也一并讨论，在对等关税的谈判里面，要把232以及供应链合作一并纳入。那我想今天的这个川普所公布的内容，并不影响我们接下来谈判的这个策略以及我们的步骤。
But there are many questions unanswered. How much investment is required to be exempt from the tax? Even if most of Taiwan's companies avoid the tariff, some ask how it may affect the industry back home.
未来是不是会有更多台积电相关的一些供应链，或者是其他的业者，也都会纷纷的赴美来进行相关的一个投资，以躲避在这个100% 的一个关税，会不会使得在台湾本土生产的这个半导体的一个比重会进一步的出现下滑的一个态势？
A Commerce Department probe needed to authorize the 100% tariff could wrap up as early as next week. Until the fine print is public, the true impact of the tax is hard to judge. Luffy Lee and Chris Gorham for TaiwanPlus.
Tokyo Electron has confirmed that a now-fired employee at its Taiwan office is involved in an IP case being investigated by Taipei prosecutors. It comes after 3 former TSMC staff were arrested on Tuesday for allegedly leaking information about the company's advanced technology. Prosecutors raided the Taiwan branch of Tokyo Electron as part of their probe. The Japanese firm says it has not found any evidence of trade secrets being shared with third parties and that it is fully cooperating with the investigation. After a 5-day drill near the Sea of Japan, China and Russia have turned their attention to the wider Asia-Pacific, where they have begun joint patrols. Ellen Liu has more.
China and Russia are boosting their military cooperation. The two have begun carrying out joint maritime patrols in the Asia-Pacific. The Russian Pacific Fleet's press service announced the patrols on Wednesday. Analysts say these kind of activities have several key benefits.
海上的联合巡航呢，通常都是针对未来它可能要作战的环境或者是区域来进行巡航，一方面可以熟悉这个航道，另外一方面也可以展现两个国家的海上联合作战能力。
Before the patrols began, the two navies held a 5-day joint exercise in the Sea of Japan, also known as the EC. That included artillery practice, anti-submarine and air defense training, and improving joint search and rescue at sea. It was also the first time a Chinese submarine took part in the drills. China says they were for defensive purposes and not aimed at any other country.
这是中俄两军年度合作计划内安排，不针对第三方，与当前国际和地区局势无关。
But analysts say both the drills and the patrols are part of China's gray zone efforts and could signify something more serious.
我们不应该去忽略，未来在台海冲突或者东海冲突，中共跟俄罗斯合作的可能性。但是俄罗斯可能扮演这种后勤啦，或者是辅助性的角色。
The region has seen a surge in military activity this summer. In July, Taiwan hosted its largest ever annual military drills. The US and Australia also carried out a massive joint exercise known as Talisman Sabre. And while China and Russia were holding their naval drills earlier this month, India and Philippines carried out their own two-day exercise in the disputed South China Sea. This all comes as China continues to turn the screws on Taiwan, ramping up gray zone efforts around the country. On Thursday, Taiwan saw a spike in Chinese military activity nearby. It spotted 47 aircraft operating in the area. 32 of those entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, an area that serves as a buffer zone but is not its sovereign airspace. China said the activity was part of a joint combat readiness patrol. Taiwan, now used to these incursions as a near-daily occurrence, says it closely monitored the situation and responded accordingly. Chris Ma and Ellen Liu for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council is pushing back against local officials who say it is impossible to give up their Chinese citizenship.
到目前为止，我并没有看到说他们有真的去申请这个放弃中国籍，因为他可以根据这个中共的国籍法去申请放弃中国籍，但是似乎没有人去这么做过。
This comes after 5 local officials here in Taiwan were found to still have Chinese citizenship despite holding elected office. That violates a law that bars elected officials from holding dual nationality. One official, who has been removed, says she was unable to give up her Chinese citizenship because China does not recognize Taiwan as a country. The other 4 local officials may also be removed from office. Taiwan's cabinet has approved a draft bill for a special disaster relief package of up to $1.9 billion after Typhoon Dinas and heavy rains brought destruction to southern Taiwan.
本特别条例也纳入包括农业、水电、道路跟水利设施的抢修和复原计划，另外还有灾后的环境卫生、文化、社福建设等重建的经费。
The special act comes as existing funds are no longer enough to meet the needs of disaster recovery. The bill still needs to be passed by Taiwan's legislature to take effect. The cabinet says it is necessary to provide more support and assistance to people in affected areas. What do EV batteries, stainless steel, and solar panels have in common? They all require nickel, a material largely sourced from Indonesia. But while it is a key part of the green energy transition, mining it can be harmful to the local environment and to workers' health. NGOs from Indonesia and Taiwan are joining forces to bring awareness to this issue and about some Taiwanese companies' involvement in this industry. Tiffany Wong reports.
39-year-old Johan Sapara has been working at Morowali Industrial Park, Indonesia's largest nickel processing site, for 4 years. The raw material, called nickel pig iron, is an essential component for stainless steel and now EV batteries. But it's hard work that also exposes workers to harmful pollutants and extreme temperatures. Over the years, Sapara says he's seen hundreds of workers get sick. There was even a deadly accident at his workplace, the Indonesian subsidiary of Taiwanese wire and cable manufacturer Huaxin Lihua. Now he's come to the headquarters in Taipei to call for change.
This is an upscale company, so it should also have top-grade safety measures, including a more advanced public safety setup.
No dirty mining.
Sapara is part of a group of advocates from Indonesia visiting Taipei to call attention to problems in Indonesia's nickel industry. Huaxin Lihua says the company follows corporate sustainability practices and found inconsistencies in reports from NGOs. But besides worker safety, there are environmental concerns too. Indonesia has the world's largest nickel reserves, and industrial parks there are projected to account for 62% of global production by 2030. They also happen to be in some of the most biodiverse places in the world. And as demand for green energy continues to grow, so do the impacts of resource extraction and production.
If we want to transition to green energy, it's useless because the supply chain is created at the cost of hurting human rights and biodiversity.
While in Taiwan, these advocates spoke with representatives from Taiwan's government and Taiwanese companies operating in the nickel industry, urging them to update their practices. Taiwan's economy ministry appears receptive to the demands, but representatives say change could take time.
那目前的话，因为要考量我们企业的适应能力哈，还有国际上它供应链变化，它需要一些调试的时间。我们目前是先用鼓励的方法，请他们做完以后放到那个永续报告里面来呈现哈，那逐步的来推动落实。
Taiwanese operations are a minority in these industrial parks in Indonesia, largely dominated by Chinese ventures. But advocates say better practices from Taiwanese firms and more oversight by overseas investment bureaus can still make a difference in the industry. They've already seen some European companies cancel investments in the parks after weighing environmental costs.
We hope that international investment do not rely on the low standard of the Indonesia regulation on protection of workers' safety and health problem.
With demand for nickel not going anywhere, these advocates will have a lot more work ahead of them as they speak up for the health and safety of their communities and try to shift global regulations. Joseph Wu, Scott Huang, and Tiffany Wang in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Singapore will soon celebrate its 60th National Day. Our reporter Isabel Wong is in the city-state to look at how it's preparing for the celebration and to take a closer look at Taiwan-Singapore ties.
Singapore, commonly known as the Lion City, is celebrating its 60th birthday after separating from Malaysia in 1965. Although it is 50 times smaller than Taiwan, Singapore has risen from a resource-poor nation to a world-leading financial hub. The city-state remains robust on official ties with Taiwan while maintaining good relations with China. Taiwan's representative to Singapore, Tong Zhenyuan, says economic ties between the two sides remain strong and steady.
Last year, Taiwan is Singapore's fourth largest trading partner, and Singapore was Taiwan's sixth largest trading partner. Even last year's global economy has not been very well, but our trade, particularly our exports to Singapore, has been increased by 13.5%.
Singapore has been known for finding a strategic balance between the U.S. and China. But experts warn that a shift in the global trading system is happening because the U.S. is reshaping how it engages with the rest of the world.
The U.S. is fundamentally changing its economic relationship with the entire world. It's not just about China or Taiwan or even Asia, it's the whole world. They're rejecting existing international norms, they're rejecting multilateral arrangements focused on reciprocal bilateral agreements based on reciprocity. There's no longer a distinction between developing economies and developed economies.
Despite ongoing global uncertainties, Singapore is looking to expand this year's National Day celebrations from the historic Padang to the Marina Bay area to mark its Diamond Jubilee. Stay tuned for more stories on how the nation covered this special day. Howard Zhang, Andy Xue, and Isabel Wang in Singapore for TaiwanPlus.
Thanks again for tuning in to What's Up Taiwan. If you want more of our reports on the go, grab the TaiwanPlus mobile app. Finally, we leave you with images of Darth Vader's lightsaber used in The Empire Strikes Back, now on display in London before heading to auction. I'm Eric Gao. Take care and see you next time.
Thank you for sharing our passion for food and Taiwan. Veggie Island explores the vibrant world of plant-based cuisine.
Wow, this is amazing.
While Taiwan on the Rocks uncovers the stories and craftsmanship behind every sip.
Have you ever tried Taiwanese beer?
Are you ready to taste even more of Taiwan?